Hey, Stoney here with another game of Mechabellum. In this game, I'll be up against a high-ranking player from China, and I'll be playing Marksman Specialist with Sledgehammers and Marksman, whereas my opponent will start with Speed Specialist with Stormcallers and Crawlers. So on round one, I think usually when you're against Stormcallers, you have to make a decision, which is how are you going to distract the Stormcaller shots. And as you can see here, they are shooting every 6.3 seconds. So that's quite a long time, right? In 6 seconds, these tanks at 7 meters per second will probably be able to go from, 4 blocks. So we'll go for like this far. And by the time it reaches Stormcaller, which is 2 of these, so it's in about 12 seconds. If I can dodge one shot and engage the Stormcallers, I would be able to do significant damage before they can even get the 3rd shot off. The trade-off, of course, for these type of play is in turn 1, you can get Crawlers and use Crawlers as sort of the frontal vanguard chaff and go straight into the Stormcaller line. Or sometimes you just get an extra set of tanks. In this case, I wanted to go with Crawlers because I have no chaff clear aside from my first 2 set of tanks. I don't think I'll be staying with Marksman for too long because I have a big problem with chaff clear. So I preemptively got field recovery and got rid of one of my Marksmen because there's really no real use for that Marksman in turn 1. Yes, they might hopefully pop a Stormcaller, but there's a very good chance that they're just a free XP for their Crawlers or the Stormcallers. I added 2 sets of Crawlers and put all my units on one side, hoping he will go even spread. For my opponent, he did sell 1 Stormcaller, and he got 2 Marksmen in order to deal with my tanks. Unfortunately for him, because he's on one side and because the Stormcaller is actually not by the tower, instead they're about 4 blocks above the tower, they were able to get the first shot. And it was a very good shot because it got most of my tanks as well as the Crawlers going through them. On the right hand side, it was just a Sledgehammer old Wild West duel. And I think they both shot each other within the split of a second. My Crawlers made through, which means that these Stormcallers, well, they might still end for these Crawlers, which they did, and they're missing most of them, which is excellent because that allows the tanks to get even closer before the next shot. And with any luck, I would be able to take out 1 of the 4 Stormcallers, but there's just not enough damage to kill all my tanks. So I got a little bit lucky on round 1. I mean, minus the initial Stormcaller shot on these Crawlers. But aside from that, I think I'm doing okay. Strike Specialist is interesting. The Missile is always interesting because all of his units are really clumped up. So I could get the Missile. The downside of the Missile, of course, is because all his units are clumped up, he could just put a shield here, which isn't too bad. The other side is really not doing too much. I'm just going to keep my Marksman here just to prevent this Marksman from coming down to my tower. I've added 2 sets of Crawlers on the side, and I also took a mass recruitment, so I'm going to put down another set of chaff. In this case, I wanted my chaff to be closer to the middle, so if there were any Stormcallers, they would hit these fans first instead of hitting my tanks and my Crawlers at the same time. My opponent went for 2 Scorpions, so he sold the Stormcallers the first round, and he sold it again the second round, and that gives him enough money to get 2 Scorpions on turn 2. And Scorpions are excellent units against tanks, and if you're hitting them properly, they will actually hit about 2 to 3 tanks per shot, which is really good. But in this case, though, both flanks are dangerously exposed. Just look at the Scorpion shots. It's so satisfying to watch. But the flanks are exposed, which means I'm going to get double debuff. And that is going to last forever. And what that means is that, yes, Scorpions can shoot my tanks, but they're only dealing about 1/10 of the damage. And with my level 3 marksman, I should be able to take care of these Scorpions before they kill my tanks. It's a bit unlucky for my opponent, but it is the gamble you have to take. You know, like looking at this board, you know that the opponent is very weak on the flanks on both sides. And if he were to defend on both sides, which he can put 2 crawlers here. He will have a problem with my 2 sets of tanks at the front, because that was the problem he had in the first round. So he can either make a decision of going protecting the flanks, or he can make a decision to have a really strong front. In this case, I would probably defend my flanks, knowing that they're, you know, super under-defended. Maybe not with units, you can still go with Scorpions, but maybe just with some missiles, so you know that's defended. But as of now, it wasn't, and I took advantage of that. Alright, round 3, unit cards. I chose the Fortress because I know there's Scorpions into play. He chose the Fire Badgers, finally defending the sides. And I believe that is the correct play. For me, I think the only thing that's standing in the way of these tanks going absolutely ham on all his chaff is these 2 fortresses. And I don't believe he is going to make a huge effort, at least not for this round, to get any chaff in front of these Scorpions. So I took a gamble and said, hey, you know what? Let's put our fortresses on the line, or very close to the line. Two spaces, so you can leave another set of chaff in the future. And just aim squarely at the Scorpions. The Scorpions aren't going to shoot at my fortresses. I think this one might, but this one is definitely... no, actually, I think they both might shoot at fortresses. I'm not too worried about them shooting at my fortresses, because the fortresses at level 1 against level 1 Scorpion do tank at least 5 shots. And I'm fairly sure that I can take them down, and the rest of that is just my tanks clearing up everything else. I noticed my flank was a bit weak, so I put down a missile, and guess what? There's a bunch of crawlers coming on my way. I also put out a cheeky crawler to the top right, because I knew that, yes, he's going to defend the flanks, right? He might put some chaff up here, but he may forget about here, where there's nothing but a marksman defending. So I'm hoping these crawlers will get in there, get the marksman, get the tower, and before these Fire Badgers come back. So let's see how it plays out. Alright, so my opponent did get the extra chaff, but he put the chaff a little too centralized. I think it was really just providing support for these Fire Badgers, otherwise my tanks will lock onto them. And my fortresses immediately lock onto the Scorpions and took them down. So what that means is, yes, he can kill my chaff, but there's nothing to deal with the rest of my army. He did put a missile at the front, so that is very good of him. Expecting some sort of cheeky play with the crawlers. 2 of his crawlers, or 3 of his crawlers made through the missile, so he's going to get the tower. Not a big issue, because by the time he gets my tower, nothing will be alive on this side to take advantage of the debuff. Sure, you got a marksman shooting at crawlers, but aside from that, there's no threat. Absolutely no threat whatsoever on this side of the board. So we're going to speed this up. And this fortress is just going to walk up to the marksman, boom, 1 shot, and that is the round. Alright, round 3. Let's take a look at the board and see. Well, first of all, let's look at the cards. Iron Blast is very strong. Most of his units are in the clump, in the line. Iron Blast is also very strong against me, because my units are also in the line. So if you say do Iron Blast like right here, none of my unit moves, right? But because the tank is already in range of the chaff, these crawlers going to run front. So this particular position is going to stay for quite some time. All right, let's see what we end up taking. So I took top supply specialist. It is only turn 4, and I do expect the game to go on for quite a bit. I haven't taken any damage so far, so for me it is a good choice. He also took top supply specialist, so I guess we're even on this round. I sold my crawler on the side here, and I will be selling this one as well because I don't intend on essentially guarding my flank. The fire badgers, they move a little faster than the tanks, and he's also speed specialist, so these fire badgers really boogie. I'm not too worried about that. I mean, they can have late fire badgers or late chaff clear. That's not a big concern because once I can get rid of these scorpions, I think I'm in pretty good shape. And these scorpions are the key to his strategy right now. Everything that he's doing is to prevent me from killing these scorpions. I added a single arc light just to take care of this flank problem. I wasn't expecting drill so early on the crawler, so what the drill does is it increases the crawler speed by 125%, so effectively doubling the damage the crawler does, which means if the crawlers connect to any units, they'll kill them twice as fast. And with everything on the line here, and with me not having a fire badger, this is actually a pretty dangerous setup because I could be overrun by crawlers if I'm not careful. I had some money left over with my fortresses on the line. I decided to go with launcher overload. On one side, they're excellent chaff clear. On the other side, I think with launcher overload, with the fortress on the line, they're essentially just being shooting until they die, right? These scorpions are going to get the fortresses this round, but these fortresses is going to be doing all the damage until they die. There's almost zero walking for these fortresses. They will be standing there, wasting their ammo on whatever things that they can find until they go kaboom. Alright, so the crawler was a huge surprise for me. I saw these crawlers, I was like, oh no, this is not good. This is a big problem. Fortunately, I have these arc light here, so not only it was covering this flank, it was also covering the flank of these crawlers coming in. My crawlers aren't doing nearly as good, and of course, with the scorpions alive, they're able to take down my fortress, take down my tower, and of course, the rest of my army. So very good round for my opponent. Mechabellum is a game where you try to react to your opponent and get them to waste damage while baiting them into a position that you're already preparing to counter later on. So for him, I think, you know, I hope what he was planning on doing is maybe me put down some Mustangs or even more arc lights. But none of those units are particularly good against crawlers on the line because they just get to you so fast, right? Even a Vulcan at this point is slightly questionable. And again, because right now they got drill, but very soon they can just go underground. Or they can just go replicate. So whatever it does is they're right there in front of you. It's very tricky to defend. With arc lights, I think the best way to deal with crawlers is when things are a little bit far away. I think usually it's about 8 spaces away, so that it shoots 93 meters, so it's 9 squares, 9.3 squares. With crawlers this close, and also with all his units, most of his units shooting the ground with only one marksman on each tower shooting the air, I think the most ideal solution to this crawler problem is just a couple Wraith. Degen Beam Wraith is nuts in this situation because not only is it going to slow everything down, allowing your crawlers to kill things, it's also going to make everything else take an additional 30% damage, right, while reducing their attack by 30%. So combined with my fortresses on the line, just non-stop shooting, this is an excellent setup. This Scorpion is already under the influence of Degen Beam, so they're doing 30% less damage. This one under the Degen Beam as well. Yes, these steel balls are going to get my fortress, but not after my Wraith has done their damage. This Wraith is already at the tower. Right now I'm lacking a bit of damage, but that's where my marksman comes in, try to supplement that weakness. And my opponent is almost guaranteed next turn to go anti-air marksman, because he's got two choices. He can either go anti-air marksman, he can go melting point, which he'll need at least 2 because I got 3, or he can go something else. Overlord here is sort of an answer to my melting point. They do hit far, and it also is good to have photon on it. So photon actually negates the effect of degen beam. So he put 2 overlords, which completely negates the effect of degen beam. And he is also able to take down my Wraith because the Wraith will just run forward. I ended up choosing the level 5 Rhino. I was gambling the fact that he is not going to respond on this side sufficiently. And as a result of that, I should be able to get the tower. And once I get the tower, hopefully I'll be able to get the rest of the army with both armies so close together. Since my fortress is already double teched, it doesn't hurt to add even more units, right? You just milking that benefit from the technology. And with only 1,000 hit point left, I feel like this is the time to go for the juggler. So let's get the loan. Let's get a little bit more chaff. Missile and possibly range. I may not even need range. I think I could probably go with either attack enhancement. I end up getting even more missiles because I just wanted to make sure that whatever I do, I'm not being surprised. I am a little wary of replicate on the crawlers as well. So my Wraith here is taking care of the crawler problem. Sure, they're level 2, but my Wraith is dealing with them just fine. Yes, even with Photon, I don't think the level 1 Fire Badgers is able to survive my launcher overload fortresses. So now my fortresses are now with the Scorpions. But I think the most important part is that Mr. Rhino has reached the tower, and with the debuff, there's nothing left to kill my 3 fortresses, and this will be an easy win for me. I think overall my opponent played extremely well, even though he was down on tempo just a little bit. I was kind of dictating the pace of the game and he was forced to respond, but I did like the switch into Overlords. I think it is a potent unit. A melting point could have also worked on both sides. If he had a melting point and he had a bit of a chaff clear here, he should be able to get the Rhino and the Wraith. This Fire Badger was doing absolutely nothing, so if I were him, I would sell this Fire Badger. This Fire Badger is still there fighting these crawlers, so there is some use, so it's a bit of dangerous to get rid of those. But aside from that, I think he responded appropriately, but he was just down in the tempo. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you again next time.